Hey guys, this is gonna be another pull plan all the way up to the 3rd anniversary, which is gonna be version 3.7. If you just want a TLDR, here it is. The only character that you're gonna pull for in the next like 4 to 6 months approximately is gonna be P0 Enigma. There you go. Now with people that actually want to listen, we can dive deep into it. Our Juggernaut version 3.4 has finally come to an end and we can take a little bit of a breather. We established ourselves 2 very brand new teams with a new follow-up attack team consisting of Liangyue, Chenhiguang, Flutterpage and Fatutu. We're gonna give our new powerhouse kiddies a new home, so we are all happy about that. We established another very brand new team that was very cheap to build with Paper Heron, Ananli, Skipperina and Two Fairy. This is a team that we call Plant Prompto. This was a Juggernaut version for a reason, and we saved up for multiple months in advance for this because we needed to P2 Liangyue, P2 Chenhiguang, P1 Two Fairy, and I know for a fact that some people did even go further than this and even pulled for some portraits for Paper Heron as well. So this was a huge dunk when it comes to Unilocks, and yeah, people that pulled for Afterglow will be in a little bit of a bummer situation, but they are very aware of that because you know when you pulled for Beryl, you know you are making a huge commitment, as it always is in this game. But anyways, with all of that being out of the way, let's take a look into the very next version, which is version 3.5, and let's see what exactly awaits us there. Another thing I should mention is real quick, because I see quite a bunch of people, very surprisingly to me, they sleep on this Liang Chenhiguang follow-up attack team. And let me just briefly touch up upon why this is an absolute must pull, you can't skip scenario. That is the only follow-up attack team in this game that is viable. That is the only home that you can give to Flutterpage and Fatutu, 2 absolute powerhouse legendary characters that you want to make use of. You cannot let these powerhouse characters gather dust. You want to give them a proper home. You want them to be played to their maximum amount of efficiency. And the only way in this game that you can do this is with both Liang and Chenhiguang both at P2. It is the only way to make this work. And this will be future proof to all the way up to, at the very least, our 3rd anniversary. It will be in the top, at least, right? This is the least. It will be in the top 5 best teams in the entire game, all the way up to the 3rd anniversary. Even in the 3rd anniversary, it will still be top 5 in the metagame, with Afterglow then taking rank 6. Just saying, right? But now, let's go and check out version 3.5. Here we have version 3.5. The 2 new characters that are gonna be released are Lorentz Butterfly and Ramona. Our 2 Euphoria updates in this version go to Spathodea and Tuesday. We're gonna start off by talking about the 2 brand new characters, Lorentz Butterfly and Ramona. Here we have Lorentz Butterfly. Lorentz Butterfly is an Afterglow unit. She's gonna be played with Beryl, Isolde, Marsha. And I have a little bit of a question to you guys, because I see this crazy misinformation again spread around the community. Usually nowadays I don't talk about this kind of stuff anymore because it's very tiring with the amount of bullshit that is just like everywhere, you know. But guys, like honestly, who are you listening to? Like look, I'm aware to like the biggest extent of who is saying what in the community and where all of this bullshit is coming from. But this one, I'm not aware where this misinformation, like where are the roots of this. And I'm talking about the fact that people are in belief that, like, pretty much the entire community is in this belief, or has this question of, is it true that Lorentz Butterfly is actually the best support for Liang Yue, and Lorentz Butterfly is better than Higuang for Liang Yue, and that's why, yeah, you should probably skip Chen Higuang, right? And I mean, this is the craziest dog shit, like, not of all time, but it's up there. Like, this is like top 5 of the dumbest things I have ever heard in this community. And like with everything else, right, I'm always aware of, like, where this is coming from. With this Lorentz Butterfly situation, though, I have no idea who you guys listen to and who puts these brain rot dog shit ideas into your head. So if you could, like, enlighten me, please let me know about that in the comment section down below. But with that out of the way, Lorentz Butterfly is a must skip, unless, of course, you play Afterglow. If you play Afterglow, if you have Beryl and Marsha, then yeah, the Lorentz Butterfly becomes an automatic must pull. You cannot skip, and you have already subscribed to the commitment of pulling for Lorentz. That's what you did the moment you pulled for Beryl, and you knew it, right? It wasn't a secret. Okay, now that is not all, because you do not just need one copy of Lorentz, but at the very least 2. Let's take a look into her portrait number 1 together real quick. Here we have it. Let's read it together. The duration of continuous action AP plus 1 is extended to 2 rounds, and you know how this goes, right? That's the reason we P1 Aleph, that's the reason we P1 Tooth Fairy, that's the reason we P1 Flutter Page. Now, in this case here with Lorentz, it is a little bit more specific, because this extension from AP plus 1 to 2 rounds is actually coming from her ultimate, not from an incantation, like it would be the case with the other 3 that I just mentioned. So this is not like the core reason why this portrait is an absolute must-have. Yeah, we need a little bit more than that. So let's keep reading. At the end of the round, if no ultimate was cast this round, the additional Moxie gained by yourself is increased to 2 instead of just 1. And here we are. Here we could stop, and this is the moment where we can call this portrait an absolute must-have. Not only is AP extended, but we get to this extension of AP plus 1 faster by gaining more Moxie as well. That is pretty crazy, but it doesn't stop here. At the start of the round, based on the number of Afterglow units present in your team, the incantation might increase for all allies per 100 Afterglow stacks is increased. And at rank 2 and 3, the effect of dealing flat Genesis damage increases on the target per 100 stacks of Afterglow. This portrait number 1 here, the value of it is through the roof. It's absolutely ridiculous actually, because the extension of AP plus 1, the Moxie increase, damage increase, buffs for all of your allies and stuff, within form of incantation might, of course. It is absolutely ridiculous, and therefore this is a portrait that there is no discussion to be had here. This is a must-have. This goes further than, yeah, I would recommend, or yada yada. No, this is a must-have. End of the story. Now let's take a look at her portrait number 2 as well real quick, and that is actually the recommended amount of value you should get. It is not a must-have like the P1 is, but if you can get her P2, that's the recommended juicer. Because of the following here, very simple. The number of printed copies through your ultimate increases to 4 instead of just 3. Look, the mechanic that Lorentz Butterfly is all about is creating a copy of an incantation in your hand. You create, by using your ultimate, 3 precast copies, in fact, of one incantation in your hand. That is Lorentz this is why you play Lorentz Butterfly. And with this P2, you create 1 additional copy. That, right, is, I think, needless to explain. You increase the value of why you play Lorentz Butterfly. Doesn't stop here again, because look, at the start of the round, based on the number of Afterglow units in your team, the effect of damage bonus increases for all allies per 100 stacks of Afterglow. Again, this is not something, this is not an effect that increases the power of Lorentz Butterfly. This is, again, just as it was with the P1 already, this is an effect that applies to your entire team. So that is what makes it, again, very, very, very crazy. But yeah, again, as I explained, the true juicer is that the number of printed copies through your ultimate increases to 4. That is pretty crazy. This is also why, if we take a look at her P5, here, take a look at her P5, please. Again, the number of printed copies increases to 5, right? So yeah, there you can see that this effect is the craziest increase in value you could possibly get through portraits for Lorentz Butterfly. Now, of course, like P5, that is a little bit overboard and a little bit too much for a support character. For a team that is, I mean, wow, it is a very, very good team, don't get me wrong. It is on top of the meta. It's top 6 in the 3rd anniversary, so it is nothing to sneeze at. But for a supportive kind of character that is not truly here to deal damage on her own and carry the team, now P5 is a little bit too much, you know what I mean? The P2, that would be enough. You would need to pull for 3 more portraits in order to establish that. You know how this goes. So again, the portrait number 1 here, that is a must-have. There's no discussion about it. P2 is the recommended value because you increase the printed copies through your ultimate to 4. So for everyone who plays Afterglow, for everyone who pulled for Beryl and or Marsha, you must also pull Lorentz Butterfly at least P1 if you can get that P2. Okay. Now we can move on to Ramona. Here we have her, and Ramona is a must skip for pretty much everyone. Look, if you are like, whoa, Ramona bro, she's my waifu. Her design is amazing, I love it, and I'm committed to Poison as well. I have both Willow and Tuesday at P3. I have 6 and his Euphoria update established. I'm also a big fan of maybe Jessica or something, right? But the point is, Ramona is amazing, I love her design. I have Willow and Tuesday P3, I'm committed to Poison Pro, I'm gonna pull. Okay, sure. If that is the case, let me recommend you one thing, which is her P portrait number 1, her P1. That is because when entering battle, you increase yourself's Moxie by 3. That means Ramona would start off with her ultimate already available right out of the gate. That is very, very sweet. And you also inflict more poison than before, and your debuff spirit repellent is also stacked way faster, way more effective, and it makes it all much more convenient. So if you are that committed to poison and you will pull for Ramona, then getting her P1 shouldn't be too much to ask for yourself. But again, for everyone else in the world, Ramona is an absolute must skip. Everyone who is not the biggest fan of poison in the world skips Ramona. Okay, that is all there is to say about this character, so let's keep moving. Then let's talk briefly about the 2 Euphoria updates in version 3.5 with Tuesday and Spathodea. Tuesday, remember what I just said about the poison lineup, right? Now Tuesday is a little bit different in terms of value than Ramona, of course, because Tuesday is the Poison Queen. If you want to play anything, any lineup, anything that has something to do with poison, then you can only do so if you have Tuesday. Tuesday is an absolute must-have. And look, let me walk you through a little bit of a scenario. Like I myself, for example, I just obtained Willow because I didn't need anything else from the 103 pulls. I already have Tuesday at my disposal. I have Jessica, I have Six, I have Spathodea, right? So I'm gonna establish the Tuesday Euphoria for myself, and then I play a just for fun poison lineup with like Six or maybe even Jessica in it. I'm a big fan and I love Spathodea, so yeah, I'm gonna play this team just for fun. And that is honestly how you should look at poison. The poison lineup should be looked at a just for fun, luxury kind of team. If you want a little bit of a mix up, and yeah, do not just play the full on straight up meta game, then poison is a very nice niche to mix things up a little bit and have some funsies there. But that's it about poison in general and the Tuesday Euphoria. Now with Spathodea, that is even more niche scenario and super weird here. She is not the replacement. Replacement is the wrong word. But she is an option to be slotted into the barrel slot in case you are completely weird and you don't have barrel, but for some reason that no one can explain, you have like Marsha and maybe Isolde is gathering dust. You are like, oh, like I fall for this crazy misinformation out there. Everyone is telling me Lorentz is super giga overpowered, broken. I'm gonna fall for this and I want to play Lorentz no matter what. But what in the hell am I gonna do if I don't have barrel? Then there you go, ding ding ding, we get a Euphoria update for Spathodea who can fill in this slot. She's here, so for exactly these kind of people that don't have barrel, but they want to play Lorentz Butterfly. That's where Spathodea comes into play. And that's the little tiny niche that this Spathodea Euphoria fills. There we go. We can now move on. Like, are these pulls? No, absolutely not, right? Both of these things here are must skips. Why? If you don't already have Tuesday at your disposal, you don't play poison. That's about it. Skip Tuesday, not worth establishing the poison team right now if you would have to invest actual unilocks. Same for Spathodea. If you don't have barrel, you don't play Afterglow. Easy as that, skip, move. Next up we have version 3.6, and yeah, in case you missed it, this is gonna be a version that is, when it comes to the time extent, is cut in half. So this will be half a version. And that's why we quote-unquote only get one character, and that character is gonna be Enigma. The Euphoria update, in this version, we actually get one, and it goes to Recoleta. So let's go and talk about these two. Okay, let's start off with the brand new character, Enigma. Enigma is the Dynamo sustain. His portraits are completely useless. What Enigma is telling you when it comes to his portraits is, hey look bro, if you play Dynamo but you don't have Sharon, right, which is already ridiculous, then hey, take a look at my portraits and consider. We don't do that, right? Everyone plays Dynamo. Everyone has Sharon because everyone plays Dynamo, so you need to have Sharon, right? I mean, come on. And then you don't need his portraits. Simple as easy as that. Enigma is of course a must pull. He's the last piece of the metagame. Everyone and their mom, everyone in the world needs the signature sustain for Dynamo, and Enigma is exactly that. There is no way around this guy. To take this a step further is that you overestimate Coppelia and Marsha to absolutely no end, right? As pretty much everyone does. And here is the kicker. Enigma is a better character than both Skipperina and Marsha. I think I don't need to tell you anything else to convince you to pull for Enigma. Then we have Recoleta's Euphoria update, which is pretty sad, if I'm being honest. Like, first of all, Bluepoch was completely wasting their time creating this Recoleta Euphoria. Recoleta doesn't need a Euphoria update. She is still, even without her Euphoria, right now and in version 3.6, the best main DPS character for the ultimate archetype. She is the reason, like, you know, Bluepoch could have done it that way to not develop this Recoleta Euphoria and instead give us the 37 Euphoria in version 3.7, which is the 3rd anniversary, and they didn't do this. So that is why it's not Recoleta's fault, you know, but still we hate her, like, we hate her for this. This is just an unfortunate situation for her, but this is how it is. Fuck Recoleta for that, right? Anyways, should you pull for Recoleta in version 3.6 to make use of her Euphoria update? No, you absolutely shouldn't. Yeah, Recoleta is a pretty decent main DPS, but the team around her is not up for the challenge anymore. At this point, Melania is still 100% needed. That is Recoleta's partner in crime, and without Melania, Recoleta is completely unplayable. But Melania is too weak. She is not holding up to the challenge anymore. She's just there as a character that generates Moxie for Recoleta. That is super good. As I said, that is what Recoleta needs to become playable, but it is not enough anymore. Like, if you deal like 200 damage and stuff, like, forget about it. And the same scenario also goes for Getian. Getian also doesn't hold up to the challenge anymore. If you compare Getian to every single other team in the game, basically, and then look at these teams' support slot characters and compare them to Getian, Getian is an absolute joke of a character, right? So, hell nah. This team still doesn't have their signature sustain either. So, I mean, what are we doing with this? Where are we going with this? You know, this is worse than Poison even. And Poison is already niche. So, hell no, bro. You know, if you, of course, if you already have Recoleta, then get her Euphoria, play her for fun, right? Sure. But Unilog investment, no way in hell, bro. Must skip, no matter how you look at it. So, let's keep moving into the 3rd anniversary, which is version 3.7, and let me touch briefly upon what the collaboration will most likely be. Here we have it, guys, the 3rd anniversary. We get 3 new characters with Rhiannon, Ms.Stranger, and Coppelia. We get 2, or like 1 5-star, 1 4-star. Don't worry about those characters. We get them for free at P5. So that is none of our concern. The 2 Euphoria updates in version 3.7 go to Nautica and Regulus. Let's talk about that. We're gonna start off by taking a look into Rhiannon, the new True Limited in the 3rd anniversary. Before we're gonna talk about her though, let me just tell you real quick that the collaboration is to 99.9% sure. It's just gonna be filled with characters again, with 2-3 characters that are gonna be completely garbage again, right? We already had it before. Why would it be different this time? Let's be real. The interesting part about the collaboration will be the Euphoria updates, especially because of Euphoria update number 2 for Lucy. But let me talk about that one a little bit more later on. Let's first focus onto Rhiannon right now. So, needless to explain, obviously Rhiannon is gonna be a must pull for everyone and their mom. No way around her, no way of skipping her. She's a flexible character with emphasis put onto the teams that are called Instrument, played together with Regulus and Coppelia, and Blood Tide, which is gonna be her true best in slot. That is gonna be the best team in the entire game. Played with Nautica, Semmelweis and Robushka. Okay, now why exactly is Rhiannon a must pull? That is because she comes with a brand new, pretty busted ability. And that is that she is able to grant your team additional turns. That is ridiculous. She is able to funnel energy into a gouge, and once this gouge would be fully filled up, you are just gaining an extra turn, right? That is, I mean, I don't think I need to tell you how and why this is like game changing, honestly. So, not only do you have to pull for Rhiannon though, obviously, it is like this every single time, that if we get a new true limited character on major anniversaries, we're gonna get portraits for this character. Usually, for the other two anniversaries that we had, with Lucy and Nautica, we P5 those. If not, tremendous mistake, hurting your account like crazy. Now, for Rhiannon, that one is a little bit different. Let me tell you exactly one more time why that is. Here, let's take a look into her portraits together real quick. I already made a video about this topic in particular, but let's go over it real quick. Here, her portrait number 1 says that when entering battle, increase your self's moxie to 5. You're gonna start off the battle with your ultimate already established. Beautiful. Then there is a little bit of incantation might and ultimate might increased here. So not too bad. The true juicer is her portrait number 2 though, because when entering battle, energy funneled into the gouge is increased to 85%. And what this leads to is that you have already 1 extra turn on turn 2. Without this portrait, you would delay yourself by an entire turn. And you know, the longer this battle goes on, the less and less, or the more and more you would be delayed with gaining your extra turns compared to having her at P0. That is the reason why this P2 is an absolute must-have. We all know why these extra turns, or being a turn faster, is so incredibly important. I explained this in the deepest detail imaginable already multiple times just recently when we talked about the P2, Liang and Cheng situation. So, to cut it short here, get P2, it is an absolute must-have. Okay, now if you are already aware of how the portraits for Rhiannon look like, then you will be aware of her P5 as well. Let's take a look at that very briefly together one more time. If you want this in more detail, of course, then check out the video in which I talk about this and only this topic in particular. Here, her portrait number 5 says, at the start of each round, you funnel even more, 15% more energy into the gouge compared to having her at P2. So you might come to the conclusion and say, hey, Strong, if you say that the P2 is an absolute must-have portrait because it charges more energy into the gouge and gives us extra turns faster, then how come you don't recommend the P5? Because the P5 would charge even more energy into the gouge, and therefore you would come to the conclusion that we generate our extra turns even faster than we would be with P2. And this is where you would be wrong, because the portrait number 5 doesn't make your energy funneling faster enough. It doesn't increase the charge rate of energy enough to actually be significantly faster where it matters. Even on P5 you still get the extra turn on turn 2 and not at turn 1. And that's why you should stop at P2 and not go for P5. If the P5 would lead to us gaining the extra turn on turn 1, then I would say go P5. That's a must-have. You got a P5, the limited true anniversary character, right? But since this is not the case, and we get our first extra turn still on turn 2, like just as it is with P2, there's no reason to go for this P5. A little bit of an honorable mention here is, or goes to the damage increase that this P5 gives you, as I know that the community like judges characters by how good they are by only looking into the damage output and disregarding everything else. All that matters to people is always only damage, damage, damage. And they are completely blindsided for everything else going on around the damage numbers. If you belong to this group, which there is a very high chance of that, then you of course have to P5 this character, because the damage output from P5 compared to everything else is absolutely ridiculous. And there we go. Recommended portrait for Rhiannon is, or must have is P2. So you're gonna pull for Rhiannon and you P2 her on the 3rd anniversary. No way around that. Next up, let's talk about Ms.Stranger. Here, the problem, there are multiple problems. First of all, Ms.Stranger doesn't even have an archetype, so she would be slotted into wherever you want. And then she comes with a very, very unique mechanic of having a special incantation that spawns on the left hand side in your hand, and you have to move it all the way up to the right hand side by playing your incantations. And if you moved it to the very right hand side, it would then be played automatically. That is pretty awkward. And the fact that she doesn't have an archetype, you know, all the signs, the point that I'm trying to get across here is that all the signs pointing towards this is gonna be a garbage character and a must skip. Kinda like it was with Muldir in the 2nd anniversary, if you remember, you know? But we still lack a little bit of information here. The character is not released in China yet, so we, for example, don't know yet what her portraits will exactly look like. And you know how it is. If like she would have a P2, right? Let's just make shit up out of our ass. If she would have a P2 where, oh yeah, now you have 3 special incantations that you can move instead of just 1, you know, like you know what I mean, right? That would be then, of course, then we would be here talking about it. Or if her portraits would be like she reduces the size of your hand, kind of the same thing that Chen Higuang already does, would help her, you know what I mean? So if she would have portraits that are overpowered, right, that make her overpowered, then we will be here talking again, and I will of course then make a video regarding this kind of topic anyways. But for now, with the information that we have available right now, all the signs pointing towards this character is going to be garbage and an absolute must skip character, because even if she is not like necessarily complete garbage, you know, we have bigger fish to fry. So that's about it for Ms.Stranger. And we have Coppelia. Now Coppelia is gonna be completely for free, so we don't have to worry about pulling for this character. She's gonna introduce a brand new archetype called Instrument. She's gonna be played together with the character Regulus. And if you decide to do that, then Rhiannon. Plus, there is of course a possibility that we should not completely disregard, and that is the fact that there could be a character like, for example, Barcelona maybe, who knows, that gets a Euphoria update in the collaboration, which also turns it into an instrument archetype kind of character. That would then of course mean this character would turn into a must pull, and we have to establish the Euphoria. Needless to explain, you do not want to miss out or skip an archetype that is introduced in an anniversary. You saw this with Bloodhate and Dynamo. and you don't want to miss out on it, is all I'm gonna tell you. Then for Coppelia, we don't have to pull for her, but should we get our, if we could pull for her, right? I don't know if she will get a banner or anything, no idea, but what if we could get our hands onto portraits for Coppelia? Should we actually do this? And the answer is no. Yeah, her portrait number 1 and even number 2 and stuff, it's not complete garbage, but it's not gonna be worth it at all, because we already have to P2 Rhiannon, and we have to at least P2 Regulus as well. For Regulus, we could go even further than that. And Regulus is gonna be a must pull character. You cannot skip Regulus anymore. And now, let me show you what the actual portraits for Regulus are. Regulus is of course gonna get her Euphoria update, which turns her into an instrument character. That is not all though. She will also see a rework for every single one of her portraits, so that these portraits synergize with her Euphoria update. And all things considered, both together, her Euphoria update and her portraits, they did go a little bit overboard with Regulus. Regulus is going to be one of the best main DPS characters in the entire game once her Euphoria update drops in the 3rd anniversary. Her Euphoria update makes her incantation number 1 already hit for very significant damage. Now if you take a look at her portraits, it gets even better, because you can see that portrait number 1 and portrait number 2 are specifically catered towards increasing her incantation number 1's damage even further than it would already be increased from just the Euphoria update alone. So Regulus P2 is gonna be a must-have. You're gonna pull for Regulus and you're gonna P2 her. There's no way around it. Now, you could go even further here, and this is why I would recommend to you to not go for Coppelia portraits and instead invest for further portraits for Regulus. If you take a look at her portrait number 4 here, for example, portrait number 3 increases the damage output from incantation number 2. Also, yeah, nothing to sneeze at, but that's not what we are here for. We are here for portrait number 1 and number 2. And then number 4 is also extremely crazy, because when entering battle, harmonization gained is further increased. At the end of the round, increases harmonization gained. Further increases the harmonization gained by incantation number 2 and by excuse me, by incantation number 1 and by incantation number 2, not who. Okay. And what this means is you gain access to your ultimate faster. For the instrument archetype, your Moxie is replaced with a meter or a gouge that we call harmonization. You have to fill this harmonization meter up, and whenever you have done so, then you gain access to your ultimate ability. And with the portrait number 4, you gain access to Regulus's ultimate way faster than ever before. And remember, not only is her ultimate quite strong through her Euphoria update, but it also gives you a turn of immunity. And the more you can cast this very ultimate, the more turns of immunity you gain, which turns out that this increases the survivability of the instrument archetype team as a whole by a tremendously and honestly very broken amount. So P4 is not the recommended way, would be a little bit far, you know, that's why I would say stop at P2, but if you can get P4, that is also giga broken. So if that is somehow possible, definitely go for it, bro. Like, if you planned to go for portraits for Coppelia anyways, stop doing that. Don't do that. Invest into Regulus P4 then. And yeah, let's talk about her P5 as well. Increases the damage dealt by your ultimate and increases yourself's additional instrument invocation level for the current round. Point is here, her ultimate will now deal ridiculous amount of damages, you know what I mean? But this is not what we are here for. The ultimate is here for us to use it a lot to gain the turn of immunity. Our damage output comes from our incantation number 1. That's why I say stop at portrait number 4. And so that's gonna be about that. Now we know, at least for the most part, what to pull for, all the way up to the 3rd anniversary. Of course, right? Just as I said in the very beginning of this video, the TLDR is skip everything until Enigma. And then in the 3rd anniversary, you're gonna pull for Regulus, you're gonna P2 Regulus. You're gonna pull for Rhiannon, you're gonna P2 Rhiannon. That's about it for most players, I would guess. But we are not done here. We have to talk about the most important thing of them all. With all of this out of the way right here, we haven't touched upon the #1 highest priority by far. So let's go ahead and talk about that. It's Blood Tide, of course. How else could it be, right? The by far best character of all time, Nautica, gets a Euphoria update. That is ridiculous. So not only that, you could take it even a step further and play the Blood Tide team together with the brand new true limited character Rhiannon as well. That is not a must-have. You can also play that team with Sentinel, like Semmelweis and Robushka are staples, right? That is gonna be the by far best team in the entire game for at least one more year. So let's say, right, you wouldn't be able, there's no way, right, if you play this game right now, there is no way you will not establish yourself the Blood Tide lineup in the 3rd anniversary. If that would somehow happen to you and you wouldn't skip everything in your way, if you wouldn't do everything in your power to establish the Blood Tide team, and you would walk out of the 3rd anniversary without the Blood Tide team established, you're gonna say goodbye to your account and you're gonna re-roll for Nautica at that point. Then you're gonna pull for Semmelweis and Medicine Pocket on the Euphoria banner. And you're gonna pray to Lord Gambler that you also get your hands onto Rhiannon. If that will not be the case, you suck at this game and you will fall tremendously far behind and your account is trash. That's all I will tell you. And that's it for the video, guys. So let me do a quick run up one more time. From now on, you skip everything until Enigma releases. Then you're gonna pull for Enigma and you keep him at P0. In the collaboration, the only possible thing that could occur that would be reasonable to pull for is like a new Euphoria update that would turn a character into an instrument archetype character. And then you could pull for this character in case you already have the Blood Tide team established. That's it for the collaboration though. Then in the 3rd anniversary, your priorities are Rhiannon, P2, Regulus, P2, and that's pretty much gonna be about it. If you want more, you invest more into more portraits for Regulus. Don't stop at P3 though. If you go further than P2, you go all the way up to P4 at least. And that's it. I would guess for most players in the game, they of course have the Blood Tide team already established. As I said, if that does not occur to you, then this is gonna be by far your highest priority. Let me repeat. If you walk out of the 3rd anniversary without Blood Tide, the best decision at that point that you can make is to delete your account, create a new account, and re-roll until the point that you have established yourself the entire Blood Tide lineup. We have Nautica has a rerun, we have Rhiannon gets her limited banner, and we have Semmelweis and Medicine Pocket being on the Euphoria banner. So everything that you would need is available to you in the 3rd anniversary. And that is what you're gonna establish. If not, good luck to you out there, bro. You suck. That's how I phrase this, and that's what I'm telling you. Do with that whatever you like. I hope that video was fun and informative. If you like Reverse1999 content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until next time, take care of yourselves, Have a great day, and we love this game.